Hello, welcome to France 2022, The Choice. It is our daily show covering the presidential election. On day 2 of the second round campaign, Marine Le Pen and Emmanuel Macron have really taken the gloves off. Here is the recap of the day with Shirley Sitbon.
It's almost Easter, and these two are hunting, but not for eggs. After crisscrossing Marine Le Pen's strongholds in the north, Emmanuel Macron traveled east to meet with health professionals. He was advised to listen, so he did.
Donnez-nous les moyens, ouvrez des lits. Ouvrez des lits, ce que je veux dire.
Les lits ferment, les sites extérieurs
Mais oui, je sais,
ferment.
mais c'est le défi qu'on a tous ensemble.
Marine Le Pen was in Normandy. Her key message? Her will to propel citizen-initiated referendums to the heart of her potential presidency. To quote, save democracy through direct democracy.
Alors que cette question aurait dû être une question prioritaire du dernier quinquennat, Emmanuel Macron est resté totalement inactif.
The hard-right candidate says the government would be forced to abide by referendums. Referendums? They're on everyone's mind since Emmanuel Macron suggested voting one to decide the legal age of retirement. Initially, he wanted to push it to 65, but the idea proved to be unpopular.
Je vais continuer à écouter, et puis je vous dirai dans les jours qui viennent. Mais ce que je veux dire par là, c'est que l'horizon de 65 ans, comme âge légal à horizon 2031, peut tout à fait être adapté. On peut tout à fait imaginer des clauses de revoyure.
Macron says he's open-minded. For Le Pen, he lacks clarity because he's fishing for votes.
On ne peut pas être aussi flou quand on est président sortant et candidat à sa réélection. Il se doit d'être précis dans ce qu'il dit. Un référendum, peut-être. Je ne sais pas. Quelle modalité? On n'en sait rien. Quel calendrier? Au cours du quinquennat.
He will go down in history as the man who torpedoed a referendum, the one on the European Constitution. Former President Nicolas Sarkozy, after refusing to back his own party's candidate, tweeted he will vote for Emmanuel Macron. A new era is about to arise, bipartisanship. Others say the mainstream right should not align itself with Emmanuel Macron, but negotiate a coalition.
La droite de gouvernement que nous représentons, ça n'est pas la même chose que l'extrême droite ou l'extrême gauche. Et que je pense qu'il est absolument capital que dans notre pays, il y ait un pilier qui participe à l'action publique pour le bien du pays dans des domaines où Macron est défaillant.
Éric Zemmour, Le Pen wouldn't put him in her government if he were the last man alive. Even if she said she would build a wide coalition.
Non, ça n'est pas une possibilité. Il n'en a pas le souhait et je n'en ai pas le souhait non plus. J'ai exprimé tout au long de la campagne du premier tour les divergences que je pouvais avoir avec Éric Zemmour, mais je lui ai toujours concédé, sans aucune difficulté d'ailleurs, qu'il faisait partie du camp de ceux qui croient en la France.
You wouldn't find Le Pen's name on her new campaign poster. You will find a slogan, for all the French, inclusive for the French, not so much for the others. That is all from the campaign trail. Meet again tomorrow, same time.
So Mark, everyone's campaigning. What does the latest poll say?
The latest polls say that Emmanuel Macron has an edge over Marine Le Pen, 52.5% versus 47%. It's not a huge lead. It's much, much less than the final results of 2017 when Macron garnered 2/3 of the vote versus 34% for Marine Le Pen.
And Marine Le Pen held a press conference this Tuesday in Normandy.
Yes, she wanted to present some of her future institutional reforms. She intends to, if she's elected, of course, to give more say to the people. Our Clovis Casali and Xavier Martinet were on hand with her in Vernon.
I will be the president who gives back to the people their right to speak out in their own country. Marine Le Pen outlined her vision on how she wants to change French institutions, for example with referendums, 500,000 signatures required, and the possibility of asking questions such as, do you want or not to stay in the European Union? Marine Le Pen also wants to change the constitution to include national priority. That is, give social benefits only to French citizens. Here in Vernon, you had dozens of her supporters who turned up and who think that she should be the next president. Take a listen.
We want Marine Le Pen because we want change. We've never had a woman president. We need to try. It needs to change. Mr. Macron favors way too much rich people. He doesn't do enough for the middle class. As a member of the middle class, I can tell you we cannot make it. With food and fuel prices going up. I've worked ever since leaving school. I never went on holidays. I'm fed up. It has to stop.
More and more neoliberalism, more and more gifts to corporate CEOs, and less measures for the people, just as we're being submerged by an unprecedented wave of immigration. There are places where you don't feel like you're in France anymore, because other cultures have imposed themselves.
Outside the venue, there were also supporters of President Emmanuel Macron and far-left leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon, all keen to express loud and clear their opposition to Marine Le Pen. They say that despite her attempts, she hasn't changed. She's still a far-right politician and racist, according to them. Marine Le Pen, who's calling for a referendum on immigration. For years now, she says it's been uncontrolled, dangerous and threatening French values.
Meanwhile, the incumbent headed to eastern France this Tuesday. After stopping at Mulhouse, he's holding a rally in Strasbourg tonight.
Yes, he's speaking in front of the cathedral in Strasbourg. And our Claire Paccalin is there with us live from that meeting. The president/candidate is speaking. Claire, he spent the last 2 days meeting people face to face on the street, speaking off the cuff, keen to show that he's not indifferent, distant, like his rival is claiming.
Well, certainly Emmanuel Macron got quite a lot of criticism in the first round campaign for not being present enough on the ground. He said that he was fulfilling his roles as a president, but for his rivals, he wasn't taking the campaign seriously. Well, certainly now the pace has really picked up. Emmanuel Macron was in the east of France. He's been following him around the east of France today. He did 3 stops, starting off in Mulhouse, where he spoke to health workers. Now, this is a region which was particularly hard hit during the peak of the COVID-19 crisis. He was speaking to health workers who said that they still don't have enough beds, resources, staff, personnel to look after and treat people in the way they would like to. He told them that his government had invested 19 billion euros into the health system, that he had raised salaries for health workers, but he wasn't going to lie to them, rather like some candidates. He said he's not going to write a poem for them. He's not going to write a check. He's not going to spend money on credit, that he needs to find money before we can start promising the earth, like he said another candidate has a tendency to do. He then headed to another city, Châteauneuf. We had a conversation about security issues. That, of course, is an issue which is more of a priority for right-wing voters. And, of course, here tonight, he's in the capital of the region, in Strasbourg.
Claire, Strasbourg is, of course, one of the capitals of Europe, so the choice for this first rally is clearly not an innocent one.
Absolutely not. I mean, you can probably just about make out Emmanuel Macron speaking just behind me, and you might be able to make out a few EU flags in the crowd alongside the French ones and a couple of Ukrainian ones as well. Now, it's very common to see EU flags at Emmanuel Macron's rallies because he's, of course, a very pro-EU candidate. He wants France in a strong Europe. He believes that France can only be strong if it's part of a strong Europe, and he accuses his rival, who's trying to weaken Europe, of not understanding that France will be weaker if it pulls itself away from Europe. This is, of course, a highly symbolic city when it comes to the European Union. European Parliament is here, based in Strasbourg. Germany is just not too far away. We're on the border with Germany. I was just speaking to a man in the crowd who told me that he voted for Yannick Jadot, the Greens candidate, in the first round, but he's planning to vote Macron in the second round. His wife's German. He works in Germany, so clearly being part of European Union and a strong European Union is important to him, and it's important to a lot of other people here in Strasbourg.
All right, Claire Paccalin reporting for us there.
We now welcome on the set our campaign commentator, Angela Diffley. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, Mark.
Angela, the radical left leader, or far left leader, if you will, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, scored 22% in the first round. So this means, and he hasn't said exactly what he wants his voters to do. He said, do not cast a ballot for Marine Le Pen, but he didn't say vote for Macron. But for Emmanuel Macron, clearly, he needs those votes if he wants to be re-elected.
Yes, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, as you say, told his supporters not a single vote for Marine Le Pen. And the trouble is, he can say what he likes, they will do their own thing. And polls already suggest that up to 20% of them say they plan to vote for Marine Le Pen, that they prioritise the cost of living issues over worries about Marine Le Pen's immigration policies. Another 40% say they won't vote for Marine Le Pen, but they could never vote for Emmanuel Macron, and so they intend to abstain. That leaves him then with about 40% of the Jean-Luc Mélenchon vote. So he has veered to the left very clearly, very obviously, since Sunday in a bid to try to lure those voters. The first thing has been his retirement project. Until Sunday, he had planned to raise the retirement age to 65. He said France needs to. Economically, it can't sustain its current retirement age. And that, before COVID, caused strikes, protests, an awful lot of disruption in France. He put the plans on hold because of COVID and intended to resurrect them if he is re-elected for a second mandate. He said, it's best to be honest, we need this money, we need to raise the retirement age. He has immediately seen that that is an enormous problem in trying to lure left-wing voters. So since Sunday, he has already begun to change. He said possibly 64, maybe not 65. He has said he's ready to be flexible on the timetable and the pace of that reform. And he's also said that if there's too much controversy around it, that he might call a referendum. Marine Le Pen immediately said, since when has Emmanuel Macron ever been in favour of referenda? He has never had one throughout his first term of office. It's a cynical ploy. Don't trust him. So she has hit back very firmly on that. In his bid to lure left-wing voters, he might have had a little bit of a problem with the endorsement today of Nicolas Sarkozy, who, of course, is a hero on the mainstream right, still amongst many of them, and a very repellent figure amongst Jean-Luc Mélenchon's voters because of his very strong stance on law and order, some of his rhetoric around immigration. And so that could be a sort of a kiss of death, really, for Macron. But that's his plan anyway.
So what is Macron's strategy for the next 2 weeks?
For the next 2 weeks, well, as we've seen from Claire, he plans to get out and about much more. And he says, I'm different. When I go out and about, I roll up my sleeves. I go to places where I'm not necessarily welcome and I deal with criticism. I argue back. He said Marine Le Pen goes somewhere where she knows she'll get a warm welcome and won't be challenged in any way. He's also said he's going to do more TV. He was very much criticised in the first part of the campaign for declining to do some television debates. He said he had too much on his timetable with Ukraine and with COVID before that. And it was easily portrayed by his rivals as him being arrogant, above the fray, too important to do TV debates. He will also try to appeal to young people, a lot of the young people who vote left-wing. He is particularly keen, as we saw there from Claire's report, on Europe. He knows it's popular amongst young people, and the thought that they might lose the ability to travel freely in Europe could be a problem. Marine Le Pen says she has no intention of taking France out of the European Union. Macron says she does secretly, so they will fight that one out. He's also been pushing ecology as well, another popular thing. Marine Le Pen has said she would get rid of wind turbines and end wind turbines in France. She said they're a blot on the landscape, and so he's hoping to appeal to young people who might be ecology-minded as well.
All right, thanks for that analysis. Let's finish on a light note.
Yes, indeed, as we just saw in round one, the Socialist Party, the Conservative Party, the Green Party, they got blown away and they failed to reach a magic number. 5% of the vote. Why is it magic? Because this is the threshold over which your campaign costs are reimbursed. They're not going to be reimbursed. So Jean Lassalle, an independent candidate who's focusing on rural issue, who's best known for his heavy southern accent and his maverick position, he decided today that he would help those Big Ten parties and make a donation to each of them in order to respect the principle of equality so dear to him, explaining that one often needs someone smaller than oneself to help. So you can see him writing checks to those big parties. And so we'll end this on that note for this edition of 2022, France 2022, The Choice.
How very generous of him, indeed. Join us tomorrow at 8:15 p.m. Paris time here on France 24 for the next episode.